November 5th, windy season. Welcome! In this episode, we're going to be installing the door for the shed. And in classic Hector and Marcela fashion, it's our first door ever, and we chose a double steel door. So this is going to be an interesting experience. We're doing it while we have this 40 to 60 miles per hour wind, so let's get into it. We are starting another adventure, and here we are renting what we call the New York. So it's UHaul's largest truck. We call it the New York because it's like the song, like if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. If you can drive that thing, then you can drive anything. So here we are.
All right, so you cannot complain that we don't show you the problems as well. There are problems, and so we ran into one. We were very happy. This is the first snow of the year, by the way. We were very happy. We unloaded the truck, we unloaded the door, left some insulation. We were very happy going back home, backing up the truck, and yeah, then this happened. Like I said, it's like the first snow of the year too. So as soon as we started backing up, the truck started sliding to the side. And long story short, we are actually stuck. Unfortunately, we've had to call a towing company. So problem number one is the slope of the road is going up. That means we cannot go up anymore. We're kind of a little bit buried in here. We had a couple nice guys. They built fences. Nick and I forget his other name. Don't think they're subscribed anyway. So, and then they were helping us, and we were trying to come up with a concoction to try to get this wheel off the air, because as we slid, there's like a big ditch in here, and pretty much we have one flying wheel. Pretty much the truck is empty, but at this point there's nothing we can do. We've tried it, we've spun the wheels, they smoke a little, so we just don't want to break anything anymore. So life was good. It is what it is.
Done with this craziness of getting stuck in the ditch with the UHaul truck. We didn't put everything on video because we were busy, as you can imagine, trying to get out of there. Two very nice guys stopped to help us, and we were like cutting logs and trying to make a ramp and get the truck out of there. Turns out none of that was necessary. We just had to call roadside assistance, and because we had insurance and because we had roadside assistance on our contract, we didn't have to pay for that winch, which was like $350. So we're ending the day on a high note, and I just have to say we are at UHaul of Boulder. Their service was amazing. You know, they were pretty encouraging. If you need to rent something, I do recommend these guys a lot. So yeah, finishing the day on a high note.
It's a week later after having so much fun with the UHaul. This week we get 40 to 60 mile per hour winds to try to install the door. So yeah, here we are. But first I wanted to show you a few things we need to do before we install the door. So come over here. So first off, what you see over here is actually the hydro duct and the XPS insulation of the foundation. And as you can tell, that actually looks pretty ugly. That's not the final look of the design. But because we're now going to start assembling the rest of the wall with siding, insulation and all that stuff, we need to start building the look, the finish of the entire shed. So the first step is to do the metal flashing. And you will see a lot more of this in the insulation episode, exterior insulation. But the reason we've done this is because we need to install this frame. This frame is basically matching the width of the exterior insulation. By the way, these are pressure treated wood, so it can withstand the water. So insulation is going to be sitting here flat, and then the siding is going to come over here. So we needed to build this entire flashing so that we could put this frame, and then the next step will be to put a nice little continuous piece of wood, probably OSB, to give it further strength. We will add a sill panel, and then we will install the door. But don't worry about it, we'll just show you as we go along. I want to show you real quick how we installed the frames on the doors. For one, these are pressure treated. So the purpose is they actually sit outside of the weather barrier, and that's why they're pressure treated. Secondly, I'm drilling some holes like you might be able to see here. They are actually a little bit deep. I'm using like this tip right here to drill them. And the reason I want to do this is because I want the head of the screws to be sunken. And the reason for that is because I don't really know at this very moment how deep or wide or whatever the installation is going to end up being. So I want to give us enough room should we need to plane them a little, and so that we don't mess up the planer when we run through a screw or something. Next, I want to show you these super awesome screws. You can see how they will cross. We will have at least 1.5 inch embedment, which is the requirement. And the screws we are using are these RSS rugged structural screws from GRK. We really love these screws, and the reason we love them is we've used the Simpson before, and as soon as we put any kind of little pressure on them, they would crack, like they snap. These ones seem a little bit more resistant, and another nice thing about them is they have a little bit of bend to them versus the Simpsons as well. The Simpsons, they just crack. The Simpson strong tie, the blue ones, you bend them a little bit, they crack. These guys, they have a little leeway, and so it allows you to perform your job a little bit better.
Yesterday we began our day with a hiccup. We already had this beautiful flashing installed, and then I was doing some planering here, and I didn't realize that my planer was low, and I ended up cutting our flashing. So we had to remove everything and do it all over again, but here we have it. So a few interesting things. We are using roofing nails for this one. We like them because they have a flat head and they have like this big cap that is going to hold everything in place. It's the same nails we're using here. So they protect from rust, and as an additional layer we paint them with Rust-Oleum. It's primer and painting one, and it gives them the black color, and it provides an additional layer of protection. So then we came back to rebuild this. We added the pressure treated wood. We are using these awesome screws, but even though we have 6 or 7, it felt bouncy. So we decided to add this layer of zip panel, and it's actually very nice. It's flat, it's smooth, it's in one piece, and now when you step on it, it's not bouncy at all. So the next step we need to do now is we're going to fill this gap with spray foam insulation. And this is not for insulation purposes, it's just because we don't want any insects building their houses in there. Ideally we should use a box screen, but we don't have one right now, so we're going to go with this one. Hopefully for the rest of the shed we'll get the box screen.
Alright, it's like 8 p.m. It's already dark. It's November 5th, and today we are planning to spend our first whole night in the shed. We did not install the door on time. It's back there, you can see it, but we made a door out of insulation. So this should hopefully work out. At least we won't be eaten by pumas or something, I hope, or a bear. Look, Marcela is setting up camp.
Hi!
This is going to be our bed, also made out of insulation, so yeah, it's like -2 outside, so we're about to try whether this is gonna work out or not. And if you don't see any more videos, well, you know what happened.
So our frame is ready for installing the door. We are now going to work on the sill pan, and that's what I'm doing here. So I have a couple of tips for you. We purchased these scissors for metal, and there are 3 of them: straight cut, left cut, and right cut. Try them all and see which one fits you better. I thought that right cut would be good for me because I'm right-handed, but I'm actually happier with the left cut. And here's a tip. So when you're cutting metal, it's pretty hard to get a straight cut, and as you go along, you'll see that it just it starts to do like some waves. You see in here and in here, and you also get like sharp edges. So the way I do it is I do a rough cut. That's why you see 2 lines in here. Let me just get this one really quickly, and I'm just cutting without much care, so I don't have you here for a long time. Okay, and once I have this is when I do my good cut. So the way I do it is I go like this, and if you see, I don't go all the way to the end because that's what causes those ridges and sharp edges. So I just go like this, and it's much easier to cut straight and smooth if you don't have to be dealing with the big sheet of aluminum. So that's how I cut it. So now let's continue doing this. So the next step is going to be apply Lexel in all the borders. So I'm going to go from here. We did this kind of L shapes. It's mostly for aesthetics and to protect this part here. So I'm going to start where we have the L, and then I'm going to go all the way through all the perimeter, all the way to the other side. So here we go. So make sure that I have a good bead. And by the way, we learned all of this from the Perkin Builders brothers, so you should go and check out Jamie's video. Okay, so now let's install the sill pan. Ta-da! So here we have our sill pan. So we got it to size, then we left about 1 foot on each side to go to protect the vertical. And then it has two, we did 2 foldings. So one was in here. We also painted the bottom of, well, the insulation that we did, we painted it black. And then we did this, this folding here, and then this folding in the back. So now it's time to nail it in place. So we are using these roofing nails. I painted the head black. Let's see how that works because I'm going to hammer it down. And just know that we did the sill pan. We have pretty much 2 folds. So one is the one in the front, which is the longest one. And then we have also one in the back that it's about 1 inch. And then we have this area to protect the vertical frame of the door. So it's about 1 foot on each end. So now let's just nail it. About every 12 feet. 12 inches, yes.
About a year and a half ago, when we were playing with the shed, like laying out the area for the shed, playing lumberjack and all, we were about to begin building the shed because we didn't know when the excavator was going to show up. So we basically ordered this door because we knew we wanted this double-sized door. And then about 2 weeks later, the excavator called me and he said, "Oh, I'm starting tomorrow." And everything is history after that. He basically excavated the main foundation. He put a huge pile of dirt right here where the shed is. And we just couldn't work on it. So basically this door had to live in our apartment for about a year and a half. Because our apartment is our warehouse as well. We were moving in materials in and out. And this had a very nasty fall, this door. You can see a big hit right there, this metal. I was then sure, and I know now, it fell out of plumb, square. And so basically we just had to deal with the consequences. So you can see that in our installation, it is affecting us.
So last Saturday we got here, we said within 4 to 6 hours this door is going to be installed. And we were very wrong about that. It took us 2 full days and we didn't finish. So we had 2 main problems. So the first one was we were trying to close this door here and we noticed that we were getting a scratch and the door wasn't closing properly. So when we looked under the door, it turned out to be a manufacturer defect. It had a pointy edge, so we got a hammer, hit it, became flat, and then that first problem was solved. But then we closed that, and then the other door wouldn't close. And then we were checking for plumb and square and everything we could think of. And then after I don't know how many hours, we said, the door took a hit on this area, but on the other side. And then when we looked at this hinge became loose. So the screws were stripped and the door was hanging. So that's when we realized, okay, this is causing the problem. What we did was we figured out how to remove the screws, and then we used framing screws, subfloor screws. They're about 1.5 inches, and that's what we used to attach the door to the frame. And once we got that solved, then everything else began to start to work as we needed it to.
On true Hector and Marcela fashion, this is the very first door ever we installed, and we chose like a double door made out of metal and all that craziness. So obviously we didn't know what to do exactly, so we ended up watching a lot of YouTube videos. And in summary, what they tell you is measure for level, plumb, and square, the diagonal. And but what they don't tell you is what to do if it's not plumb, level, and square. So the quick short is, first, my suggestion is to have the floor perfectly level. And so you might have seen that Marcela was planing, and we made sure everything was nice and level at the bottom. And then the next suggestion is you can adjust the perimeter of the door through shims. And so let me show you now the steps for that. All right, so you've made sure that your bottom of the jamb is nice, it's where you want it to be. So then the next step is to make sure that the jamb is nice and plumb against this axis. So what this allows you to make sure is that you're not leaning you don't have the door leaning to the outside or have the door leaning to the inside. In our case, actually, we ended up drawing a nice line with a pencil because after making sure that this side was nice and plumb, we went to the other side to make sure that it was nice and plumb. That said, once we had that in place, we actually inserted the screw to make sure that the door would not move away from us. We kind of like inserted it not all the way because we still need to adjust the perimeter. Alright, so now you have your door taken care of on this axis. So what we end up doing is we begin by inserting shims along next to the hinges because that gives the structure a little bit more strength. So we inserted enough enough shims to make sure we are now nice and plumb along this axis. So basically we're making sure that the jamb is nice and plumb on this side, and then once you're happy on one side, you insert a screw, you tighten it, and then you start playing around the rest of the hinges to make sure that everything is nice, plumb, level, and basically you are almost done. And now we're almost done with the hard work. So one of the final steps is to just make sure that the door is in good placement. So one quick little trick to do is just leave the door here like at 45 degrees. Make sure it's not moving. If it's not moving, you're probably good because that means gravity is not pulling it one way or the other. And then obviously the final step before tightening all the screws up and then setting everything in place is to make sure that the doors actually shut.
Okay, now that the door is in place, we can start detailing. So since it's a double door, we have a lock at the bottom and the top. It's called, with Jeld-Wen, it's called astracard. And you need to make a hole for this lock. So what we did to find the exact location is we just spray some paint, and while it's still wet, you close the door, push the door, the lock down or up, and it marks the exact location for the hole. So we can now discuss the levers and deadlocks. So we're using this Berlin Modisch brand, and it says it's simple, elegant, and secure. So we're not sponsored in any way, but this is what we are using. And here are a couple of tips for you. So this thing here, I don't know the name, but this is what goes inside the door. You insert it in these cavities. It goes just like that. And then the level is on both sides, connects to these holes. There are two sizes. So if you need to adjust it, you just move this thing like that, depending on where the hole is on the door. Here's the critical thing. If you get this wrong, then your deadbolts and your levers are going to be out of place because this is what aligns the whole thing. So here are a few tips. So first of all, make sure that this enters like perfectly flat with the door. If you can notice on this door, it has rounded edges here. So we actually had to use a chisel and to make these like square corners to make sure that this enters perfectly flat. Then the next thing is you want the screws to go in perfectly straight. So what I recommend is using a small drill bit and then just like pre-drill the holes for the screws. And finally, I recommend doing this with a screwdriver manually, because this way you can feel what you are doing and it's unlikely that you are going to strip the screw. Yeah, and it's just going to make it nice and easier.
Let's have a little parenthesis on glamping. So look at our setup. So to begin with, we have 2 layers of Rockwell insulation, which is our mattress. And then we have 2 of these inflatable mattresses. And then we have this mattress cover. It's pretty fluffy. And then this was the start of the night. So we got this double sleeping bag from Teton Sports. It's rated for 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And it did a wonderful job. Yesterday we were at -7 degrees Celsius, which I think is like 20-ish something Fahrenheit. And we were not cold at all, so this one was pretty awesome. The other item that we had is this, It's a Big Body Mr. Heater, or Mr. Heater from Big Body. It operates on propane, but it's rated for indoors. So of course you cannot leave it unattended because it's real fire. You need to be pretty careful. We actually have an extinguisher on the other side just in case. But it works pretty well. If you want us to do a review on this item, just let us know and then we'll be happy to get that for you. And with this little detour now, let's get back to the door. So we are done with finishing the door on the inside. So we first covered the cavity on top with this zip tape to prevent, well, it's for air tightness and preventing bugs. And then the other item that we did is we first filled this about halfway through with a rock wool insulation. And then we applied a layer of Lexel acoustic sealant, which is the transparent thing you see in here. And that's pretty much what we need for the inside of the door. The Lexel went all the way around, including at the bottom. And now here, let me show you what we are doing on the outside. So come. Alrighty, so let me close this so you can see how nice this looks. Yeah, so okay, here we go. So on the outside, we have the rock wool insulation that I mentioned. It goes about halfway through, and then we are going to fill the rest with spray foam insulation. So the spray foam insulation is pretty much for air tightness, and rock wool is for air tightness but also bug control, because if there's ever a bug that goes through this insulation, we want it to hit rock wool because they don't like biting on rocks. So we're going to do that all around the perimeter, and then we also need to apply Lexel at the bottom here. But that's pretty much what we have for the door. Look how nice it looks. It has its handles and the deadlocks. It's pretty cool. Now this is going to be our last episode of season 2 of the shed, because we have some beautiful things going on. If you look this way, we have some metal structure going on already. So we're going to pause the construction of the shed for a little bit right now. We have about 2 months left of acceptable weather. So we're going to be working on the house, so get ready for season 2, which is coming up pretty much immediately. And yeah, we still have things to do on the shed. Stay tuned for season 2 of the shed. We're going to be finishing that door with paint and fixing that heat it took on the door. We need to do power and lighting and all of that in the shed. But that's pretty much for this season. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next season of the house.